This week on the Tweaktown Show, GeForce RTX 5090 rumors are here. We look at Inno3D's hidden cable RTX 4070 and the coming industry changes. Does NVIDIA DLSS need Tensor cores to work? We go hands-on with DLSS 3.5 and it's a game changer for ray tracing. Intel's 14th gen CPUs look impressive. Nintendo Switch 2 details emerge. iPhone 15 Pro repairs are cheaper. Starfield modders make the game less annoying. NASA releases highly anticipated UFO report. And NASA's Mars rover photographed an avocado on the surface of the red planet. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to this week's episode of the TT Show. You are joined by Jack Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and my co-host Kosta.
Andriatis, a gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown too.
There we have it. I have been diving into Starfield, and if you've been keeping up with all of the previous episodes of the TT Show, each week we have been discussing our experience in the seemingly expansive world of Starfield. It is getting better. And the last time that I left you guys off, I think I was level 5. I think I said in the previous episode. I'm now level 15, so I've played I think
a lot more, I would say.
I've played like 12 hours more. And it went from like, so if I was going to put it into a graph, it was like up, 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 and then I'm like, my enjoyment just spiked. As soon as I took into account with what you were saying last episode, where you're like, just find a storyline that's, sparks your interest, and then just follow it. And that is what I did. I'm like a ranger in space now.
Did you?
I have a badge.
The Western planet, and now you're Freestar Collective. Is that what you joined?
Yeah. And I've got Mantis gear. I've got Mantis gear. I've got an entire yellow set. I've got a bunch of yellows. I'm level 15. I did a side quest and I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. I was just roaming around following this. I can't even remember the storyline. And then I went into this like haunted cave, and then some mum was like really upset about how they treated their I think it was their son. And then we figured out that they died, and then you just keep going through the cave, and then there was this statue, this mannequin with all yellow gear on it, and I got a new ship. I got a brand new ship. Awesome. And I'm like, this game is the best. This was the best thing I've ever experienced. From there, I just became like hyper powerful. I think I'm really strong still. But a new ship, handles way better. Ship combat became way more enjoyable because I don't know, the starter ship is kind of stiff. That's what it doesn't really. And you die quite quickly. Like if you had no idea what you were doing. But as soon as I got a new ship and it was just handling smoother in space, I'll be like cruising around, and then I'd like brake and pull up, and then let them go under me, and I'm just like doof 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 doof, just wrecking mercenaries.
That's the exact sound effect too. Like, it's so cool. It's like, the ballistic weapons that you get, like those ones. Yeah.
It was wild, man. It is definitely aging with me. Like it's getting better. It's getting better the longer I'm playing it. And just to link it back to the previous episode again, I think you said like some of the game's enjoyment is locked behind the skills.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is so true. Like me just unlocking like pickpocketing, because you know how I said I was setting up my character to be a bad guy. I steal everything, all of people's things. I take most of their stuff and then kill them afterwards, so they can't tell anyone. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I finished like the epic sci-fi alien xenomorph Xeno-weapon storyline.
Oh, I want to do that.
Epic. That's one of the faction ones. It's not the main quest. And yeah, it's basically it feels like an epic sci-fi movie crossed with like all this cool stuff that kind of like comes out of nowhere. And then and I also found like epic like gear out of it too. because I think I did it because there was like certain parts of that quest where there was an enemy ship that was like 10 levels higher than me, and I'm like, nah, screw this. I'll figure out a way to cheese it, or to just like, you know, like just stock up on ship parts and then just like spam repairs and keep my distance and then slowly chip away, manage to beat it. And yeah, it's so rewarding when you focus on these like cool things that you discover.
Oh my god. I just found this right now. I was just Googling the Mantis gear. Derek from Tweaktown has done a article on best gear rolls for weight management and improved carry capacity, and he found the Mantis gear. So I've set the link into the Discord, the Tweaktown Discord. Yeah, check out that gear. I'm just going to show it off for the people on YouTube, and if you're just an audio listener, head over to there. Go find this gear. This gear is wicked.
Oh, shit, I found it. Does look cool.
I found it by accident, and now I look like a bug.
That is so cool.
But a really high-tech bug. I like the ship is wicked as well. I stumbled across this, and it just made my enjoyment skyrocket.
Less. 40% carry capacity. Well, plus 40 carry. Wow. Yeah, that's what I need.
That's what I need.
That's what you see like in the game. Like the gear that I got, because it was like a xenomorph mission, then you got to fight these like alien bugs, like scary shit, like death claw level, like from Fallout. And then I ended up with all this gear where it was like, you know, you get each gear piece was like minus 20% of melee damage because all these aliens would come up and attack you. So it just made you way stronger.
Yeah.
Like all this extra armor, and it's just like tanky gear. It's like, it was really cool.
I have a question. Maybe it's because I found this gear and I'm currently OP. How does the scaling work? Does it scale with whatever item level in quotation marks your character has? And then every time you load a new instance, the game, let's say director, then just makes the mobs in the game proportionately powerful to your character level based on your gear. So how does that work?
I think enemy scaling to a point. There's certain areas that have a higher level and more dangerous enemies anyway. But I think it's almost like a flat scaling. It's not as prominent as other RPGs because they're like the items don't have level requirements. Like if you get that thing, like you don't have to be like, oh, I can't equip this until I'm level 30 sort of stuff.
That's what I found. I found like when I got that gear, I'm like, oh, my first reaction was like, oh no,
I would just like
I probably can't wear this.
Load up a game and check out the roles that you've got compared to like the screenshots that are in the article, and see if the roles are the same or if there's different ranges, or it's always like that sort of stuff. Changes per game. So I think with like Starfield, like it's more like if you do find something legendary, it's going to be good for the whole game because there's going to be a whole bunch of legendaries, and you know, you'll be able to chop and change depending on how you want to play or what you want to do or what bonuses you want to get.
Yeah, that's true. Just to pause real quick, your camera has dropped out on Discord, but we are still rolling. So what do you want to do about that one?
Oh, how did that stop?
Nah, it's all good. Did we have any other updates on Starfield just while you're fixing your camera? I think we have the Starfield modders. Let's just segue straight into that. So I recently wrote up a story about some mods that I really appreciated. Because they got rid of some of the most annoying aspects for the game, for me at least. Or like, they weren't big aspects of the game. They were more so like, why is this a limitation in, like, it should be higher at least. And it is one of them I noticed immediately as soon as I went to one of the major cities. So all of these mods are on Nexus Mods, which is like with most of the big mods out there. So Medieval AI has released a mod that increases the total number of ownable ships from the default 10 to 50. I really enjoyed that. I haven't installed these, and you need to do some... I think there's different installation processes for each of them. Another really nice mod that I saw was a height variation mod, and it changes the height of NPCs, which I believe adds to a new level of realism in regions such as New Atlantis. When I first got to New Atlantis, that was one of the things that I immediately noticed. Is like everyone was like carbon copies of each other, and Bethesda games, they typically are like that, but height is one of those things I think is just like a lazy thing to, as a developer, to move past. And you can always say in this regard, like, yeah, there's going to be mods that come out and fix that, but like, come on, like put height variation for your NPCs in the game, or at least make it more diverse. There's people making mods for your game just to change the height of the NPCs. Like I think that's a red flag.
It's like all the NPCs are the exact same height.
Yeah, approximately. Like it's
I
really.
didn't even notice that.
Yeah, as soon as I got to New Atlantis, I was like, whoa. Everyone is the same. Everyone's the same. But then you kind of go like, this is a Bethesda title, so you know they kind of are like that. They're all like that. What is another one here? The mods don't stop there, as Armored Troll has developed NPCs use ammo mod, which does what it says in the title. Forces NPCs to use ammo as opposed to vanilla Starfield where NPCs have infinite ammo. This mod will force NPCs to scavenge for ammo from dead bodies, crates, containers, and anywhere else they can in order to keep using their weapon. I really like this. I like the whole idea of once I kill my enemies, and I do this every single time, is I go up, loot their body, take their ammo, no matter what it is. Ammo is no weight, no mass in Starfield, or at least the ammo that I'm encountering, I'm not sure.
The only ammo that weighs stuff is like grenades.
Yeah, and it's barely any. It's like, I think it's like 0.3 or something like that, right?
Yeah, because like Fallout 76, because that was like an online game, that was like the first Bethesda style game to actually add weight to ammo. Whereas traditionally, like, they don't have any weight, which is good because then you can just carry all the ammo you need.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about.
Yeah, I like that.
That'll just make inventory management just such a pain.
Yeah, yeah, well, for sure, it would be. You'd spend more time in the inventory than you'd want to. Yeah, I'm not advocating for them to add weight to ammo. I wouldn't download that mod for sure. But I like the idea of NPCs having ammo, and I think the NPCs, or at least the ammo that you get from NPCs, needs to be increased, or I would like it increased. So, because they don't really have that much ammo. So if you added this mod, they would run out of bullets so quickly, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, like, most of them, when you loot them, unless they're a really strong mob, they have like 40 bullets. I would like it to be like 80 or something like that, like double the amount of ammo, but then they have to look for ammo, because it'd be really cool to see them go over to people that I've killed and then just like loot them really quick and then start shooting again. I don't know, it adds a bit more I don't want to say realism, because you're fighting aliens, aren't you? But it just adds another dimension to the combat.
And it is kind of like realism, like in a way. But then the ammo system is a little bit weird, because your companions, right? So if you give them a weapon, all you need to do is give them like one ammo for that weapon, like one type, and then they can continuously use that weapon. So they don't actually need ammo. So like there's no system in the game where you need to actually keep giving your NPCs manage their ammo as well as yours. So it's like, which is cool, because then that would add another layer of like micromanagement. Like you're like, oh, they've got a shotgun, I'm going to make sure that I always give them shotgun ammo, otherwise they're going to run out. Yeah. So you don't have to. All you need to do is give them like a weapon and like 5 bullets for that type of weapon, like even if it's like an OP weapon, and they'll just continuously use that.
Yeah, I like that aspect. I like that mechanic. I think that was all of them. Oh no, sorry. Here's the one that I don't necessarily recommend you installing unless you want to like push the capabilities of Starfield and possibly cause a lot of bugs in your game. Someone has created a mod that unlocks the limitation on how big your ship can be. So you can build your ship up to a 2 kilometer by 2. No, sorry, it was larger than that actually. It was 4 or 5 kilometer by 4 or 5 kilometer ship.
And can crash the game. But somebody made with that mod a 1-to-1 replica of the Titanic.
Wow. That is amazing.
In terms of obviously it's not like not a 1-to-1 in terms of it's exactly the right components, but it's like the right size and scale, and they use the shapes to get it. And then there's like screenshots of it in space. It's hilarious. And then there's one screenshot where the main character is like T-posing, and then in front of them is like the Sarah NPC. So it's kind of like that scene from the Titanic where Leo's arms, I'm on top of the world. I'm the king of the world scene.
I love that.
Hilarious.
Before we move on to the next topic here, did you manage to fix your camera, or is that not coming back this episode?
Let me, let's just pause here.
We can quickly pause. Don't stop the recording. And
because the other camera's still working. That hasn't stopped.
Yeah, that's no worries. Yeah. We'll be right back. Straight after these messages. All right, we are back. Sorry about that. We have worked out all of the issues, and we are ready to jump into the first big story of this week. And as you heard at the top of this week's episode, there are plenty of big tech stories to get into. So let's kick this one off with the RTX 5090 rumors taking shape, currently on video cards. All right, Kosta, what do we know?
All right, so obviously, typically every 2 years, NVIDIA releases a new generation of hardware, which would mean that technically 2024 next year is when we will see the GeForce RTX 50 series, with the GeForce RTX 5090 being the flagship, which is kind of crazy because the 4090 is still ridiculously powerful. And, as lucky owners of a couple of them, we don't see any need for a 5090, but it's always good to get an absolute beast.
I need one already.
So basically, the 50 series will be running NVIDIA's new Blackwell architecture. So that'll be the successor to Ada Lovelace, and it'll be using a new process node. And there's going to be separate cards for high performance and AI, as well as versions for gaming GPUs. And what we're getting now is early word on what the top of the line gaming GPU is going to be, and this has been backed up by Copite7Kimi, who's a leaker over on Twitter and X, who's always leaks the goods when it comes to GeForce news, reported by video cards and other outlets, as well as our story in the show notes. And basically, the 5090 is going to be another monster compared to the 4090. So just overall performance boost will be 1.7x over the existing current 4090. There'll be a 50% increase supposedly in the CUDA core count, a 50% increase in memory bandwidth, which will be huge, which would mean that it's 32 gigabits per second and most likely using GDDR7 technology, which is brand new and yet to hit the scene. There's going to be close to an 80% increase in cache, the level 2 cache, which is kind of like NVIDIA introduced that in the 40 series, which improves memory performance, and a 15% increase in GPU clock speeds. So GPU clock speeds will most likely out of the box in OC models pretty much hit 2.9 gigahertz or close to 3 gigahertz. And just a few months ago, the 3 gigahertz barrier was broken on a 4090 using liquid nitrogen cooling. So to get that level just out of the box will be crazy.
Wow. I have a question. With these increases in scale, memory bandwidth, cache, and frequency, how is it only 1.7x improvement versus the 4090?
Because power... power doesn't scale in a linear fashion. So if you double the core count, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get double the performance. It's always been the case. Like architecture is like different. The 4090 is like an absolute monster. It's like a fully unlocked Ada Lovelace GPU, similar to even what they would use like in the workstation space. So maybe they're just customizing and tuning. Like the way it is that because they're doing separate GPUs for graphics market as well compared to like what they're going to be using for AI and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they're probably tuning it to be that thing, like an 80% increase which is basically let's say a 70% increase in performance compared to the 4090.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is 1.7 times in terms of performance, is that 70% faster than a 4090? Yeah. 70%.
Which is nuts, right? So like
that makes more sense.
And a fine generation, like let's say you get a generational uplift that's 30 to 40%. That's good. That's worth it. That's showing you that the architecture is improving as it should.
Yeah, well, I'm
like 2 years later too, so like to get another 70%, like this, assuming that this is out next year, and there's rumors that they're going to delay the release.
Yeah, when I was benchmarking GPUs throughout the 20 series, I was informed that typically, in terms of GPUs, you get about a 20% performance between architectures. And anything above that is like, that's considered really good. That's great.
Yeah.
But that's a good year. Like, that's when you should be like, if you were, say, an architecture behind, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, was it Pascal, the 90, the 97, the 900 series, sorry?
Oh, the 10 series was Pascal.
10 series was Pascal.
Yeah,
so like if you were running
a massive increase.
Yeah. So if you're running one of those, then you wait
two
generations and then grab that one.
Because then you're going to get like a 50%.
Yeah.
Like a 50% increase is huge, right? So that's like going from like 100 frames per second to 150.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like going from 100 to 170 is bananas.
I read that number wrong.
Like a 70% increase in performance means that as a 4K card, the 5090 will be untouchable.
That's 4K,
like the 4090 is already like untouchable, like it's a 4K card. It's a little bit crazy. So basically, like the memory configuration will be on a 512-bit bus. So like the specs based on this leak with like the faster memory, like it doesn't say how much memory, like it says increase in memory bandwidth, but like the 4090 and the 90. The flagship models, the 3090 and the 4090 have had 24 gig of the fastest, GDR memory that NVIDIA has put in cards. So even if this is like another 24 gig, that's still huge. That's still a massive capacity for modern gaming.
So would you say that this, like 70%, that is ridiculous? That is insane. Compared to the 4090, is it too much? Do you believe these rumors, or do you think we could actually see this card?
I think NVIDIA's kind of like set the precedent with the 4090 that they will release a card that's like insanely powerful, because the 4090 is like around about that. Like what made the 4090 such a beast is that like the 3090 was super powerful, right? And so the 4090 came along and that was 70% faster or 70-80% faster or whatever the case is, depending on the tests or the games. It sits in the same sort of region. So if that's what they're aiming for, and it's going to be that sort of increase again, then they've already set that precedent to say, they're able to charge, way more than what they have in the past. Like the 4090s cost more than the 3090s, and the 3090 was one of the most expensive GPUs ever released. So I think the 5090 will come in at that sort of the similar price point to the 4090, because the flagship is selling well. It's on the Steam charts. There are a lot of people buying up 4090s. So there might be people that will maybe were on the fence about the 4090, and if they see the 5090, they've got like a 3090 or a 3080, they'll make that jump because they're going to get something double, at least more than double.
Yeah. No, I can see it. I can also see it as a bit of a Obviously, the people
it's overkill too, though.
Yeah, these people are buying this are pushing 4K at above 100 FPS. But it's also from like a marketing perspective. It's like if you have this card that is so much more expensive than all of your other options, and it also comes with the performance, it's kind of like, I don't know, it gets headlines, people hear about it in the community, they go, and when they see it, they're like, oh, look, you've got the 5090, dude. And you're like, yeah, like it's a flex almost. But it also comes with the punch. Like you do get the performance. It's worth it. And that's why those people would buy it. The people that like to flex their kind of...
Yeah. It's total enthusiast. It's total like it is overkill. The most exciting cards will be like the 5070, right? So like if the 5070 ends up being as powerful as the existing 4090, but in like a 2-slot form factor using, very little power and it's super efficient, but it's able to push that level of performance at a more mainstream sort of price point.
And applies to more people.
That becomes like an absolute, like that everybody will want rush out to buy it. Yeah,
it's impressive. They're impressive in their own different ways.
Like the 5090 will always be that sort of card that's a pure flex on NVIDIA's part to push it, just to say that they kind of like established that precedent with like the 3090 because that was the first time they did a 90 class card that wasn't like a separate thing, like a Titan or something that was kind of like this. Like it felt like this thing, that's just too expensive. But then by making it like an actual model, like a 3090, everybody's like, oh yeah, it costs twice as much as a 3080, but this is the new flagship.
Yeah. So
then those people will like, I'm going to get that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely supplying the demand for people that, these are the people that buy like Gucci bags. And that's how I think of them. But the difference is your Gucci bag is still, in terms of utility, the exact same as like a Kohl's bag. But it's the same mentality where you're like, I want the best. Some people just want the best. I want the best. I'm one of these people. I would probably never go out and spend that much money unless there was a game that warranted it. I don't know. Like, I buy system sellers. I bought the Nintendo Switch. Again, this is a completely different price point. But I bought the Nintendo Switch to play Super Smash Bros. And to play Super Mario Odyssey. And then I put it back in my drawer. That's it. And then I'll do the exact same thing for the next game. There's some gamers out there that just want... Or just, like, I love frames as well.
Dude, like, the people bought the 3080 and the 3090... just to play Cyberpunk 2077.
Yeah, that's a perfect PC system seller. It warrants the upgrade, especially with new technology like ray tracing and all of these other fantastic things that are coming out in NVIDIA. It's like they're giving you more reason to push the boundaries on what frames you can generate and how good your games are going to look. And the price tag comes with it.
And this is also just specs as well. So the architecture will bring other things to the fold. So it'll have other improvements that we don't know about. Like Ada Lovelace brought a bunch of things as well. Creator-friendly things, a bit of power efficiency, new designs, this and that. But then also, NVIDIA's AI hardware. Like if you think of NVIDIA now, like you pretty much think of AI as much as you do GeForce RTX. Like especially in 2023 with the AI boom, probably more so for most people, right?
For sure.
And even in the gaming space because of DLSS. So the 5090 will introduce, or the 50 series will introduce DLSS 4. That's a given. Like even, doesn't matter what technology it is, it'll be slapped with the DLSS 4, sort of like branding. And they're going to make sure that it's something that either leverages advanced AI hardware in the architecture or whatever technology that they're working on, because they're at the forefront of that. So there's like that side of it too. Like the 4090 introduced frame generation, so like the 5090 will probably introduce something like that as well.
That's exciting. I'm really excited to see what it
I don't know
what it could be.
Idea or guess what it would be.
Do you want to take a guess and then see if our guess is right. Maybe we could come back to this episode when the 5090, where the rumors are heating up or something.
There's a version of DLSS that actually improves texture quality.
Seems like a very safe.
Real time. It does AI enhanced textures in real time, because you know how like you can run like textures through AI models and they clean them up and improve the detail and things like that.
Yeah, kind of like the NVIDIA. Is it the remixer?
Yeah. There's
Remix?
that, and there's tools, but like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
like
but real time.
Yeah, but to do it in real time.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm just taking
imagine that. That would be nuts.
Yeah.
Imagine turning that on and off. What you'd give yourself a nose? You'd give yourself a nosebleed if you were playing like a classic game.
It works for like all old existing games. So like you just chuck in like CS:GO, Overwatch 2, etc., and then you just like turn it on, and then it just makes it look like an 8K remaster or some shit.
Yeah, you're in like Team Fortress 2, and then you just click DLSS 4, and it's just like it looks like Inception.
It's like a remaster, and then but then it also like does some lighting stuff to it. I don't know. Might as well go all in on the pie in the sky.
You know what? I'm gonna hook my little boat to your ship. I also think that will be the next step. It makes sense. Like they're doing that with ray tracing. Of course, they're going to move to textures next. Unless you can think of some like, I don't know. That seems like the most reasonable like next stone to leap to, unless it's going to be some wild
maybe even like
out of the box kind of thing.
Like because 3.5 takes over like some of the human denoisers for ray tracing, and it makes ray tracing look so much better, and we're going to go into that a bit later, because I managed to actually go hands-on with that and Cyberpunk expansion, as well as a Unreal Engine 5 demo of it. But like maybe it's like something like that where DLSS just takes over some sort of rendering thing, another thing that was handled in some old way or has been done for like 10 years that we take for granted or that we're not really aware of, and then it's like, oh well, the AI version looks a lot better.
Maybe we should just segue right into it's the perfect segue. We should just get straight into it now.
Yeah. All right, cool. Yep. So DLSS 3.5 was announced at Gamescom. The top of the line thing is that 3.5 isn't for everything or every game or it's for every GeForce RTX GPU, but what it is it's all about ray tracing. So when a scene is rendered in a ray traced game, and this is especially true in heavily ray traced games like Cyberpunk 2077, the upcoming Alan Wake 2, Dying Light 2, and whether it's shadows, global illumination, emissive lighting, there's all these ray tracing things going on. So basically what happens is that, these rays, the ray tracing, like it bounces light around the scene, like individual rays, and based on that, it calculates shadows, it calculates reflections, it calculates light, and to mimic reality. But what happens is that, like, you can't, like, there's no hardware that can bounce around 6.5 billion rays or whatever you need to fill every single pixel, right? So you bounce an X amount of rays, and then you get this realistic representation of how the light is working in the scene, but it's a very noisy image. And NVIDIA shows that, like, these are like this is what the noisy image looks like. And this is something that happens in movies, when they do movies, when they make, like, when they render scenes for 3D effects. It happens in, like, a lot of games as well. So what happens is that you have this denoiser, and this is like a handmade thing, where it takes all the noise and it works out, this is what each individual pixel is supposed to look like, this is how the lighting should work based on all this information that we've got from the ray tracing, and then you render it, and then you get the ray trace reflections, you get all the goodness, and the image looks clean. So basically 3.5 replaces the denoiser with an AI-based one. And this AI-based denoiser has been trained on 4 times as much data than the existing DLSS has for, like, upscaling.
4 times?
Yeah, like a ridiculous amount of data. It has been training on NVIDIA's cutting-edge supercomputer on, actually no, 5 times more data.
What?
Than frame generation. Yeah.
Do they give a total like terabytes or
amount of like data? But
I want to know so bad. I want to just see like 400 petabytes. Like just, it's probably more than that. I don't know what it is. Like I'm assuming these files are massive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so the supercomputer's done all that. It leverages the Tensor cores in the GeForce RTX hardware, and you're thinking, okay, so it's going to be AI-based denoising. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, like you don't like how it works is so technical. Like I'm not an expert on it. Like I read the documentation, you get a general understanding of this is what it's doing, and this is how the technology works generally.
Yeah.
But basically, the proof is in the pudding. And with DLSS 3.5, the AI-based denoising actually improves the image quality. So reflections are more detailed. The lighting is more detailed. It is more accurately recreated. So even though it is accurate before, like you're just seeing way more finer detail in the lighting, way more finer detail in reflections, way more finer detail even in things like shadows. It basically makes the best way to think is that like it makes ray tracing look super high res and super crisp, when before it looked great, but like now it's like, oh wow, now this is like crystal clear, super detailed, and it looks better than native. So obviously, like without DLSS enabled, you're just rendering the game normally because it's going to use the denoiser, like that, all the existing technology that exists, right? And the game is running at whatever, like half the frame rate, and then you turn on DLSS and you turn on 3.5, and then it, like the quality of the game looks twice as good in a lot of scenes.
And the performance here isn't as much.
No, the performance is better than the native. So it's like you're getting like a massive performance boost and a massive increase in
visual fidelity,
image quality. And so like there are a couple of sections that NVIDIA pointed out for us to check out in Cyberpunk 2077's. This is a part of the update 2.0, the game, which is a huge overhaul of the game. And like, so visited these areas, and you'll be seeing images of those on the screen and in the show notes in the article. You can check them out.
This is Phantom Liberty. Sorry for... Is this right? Is this the DLC? Is this a part of the DLC release, or...
This is part of just like Night City, but yeah, part of the DLC release as well.
Okay, so the DLC
there's a couple of sections that are in the DLC and a couple of sections that are just in Night City, just to show you.
And both of these will be releasing on the same day?
The 2.0 comes out like a few days before.
And DLSS 3.5 will be debuting?
In 2.0, yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it comes out, yeah, at the end of the week, or when this episode is out.
By this time this airs, you should be jumping in, updating your game.
So ray reconstruction, there's a lot of scenes where it just looks so much better. Like it is noticeably better. And they also provided a Unreal Engine 5 demo. This was like at Computex early this year when we were there at the NVIDIA's presentation. They showed like this cyberpunk like ramen shop set in the future. And it was like the AI NPCs, like, where you can, with your headphones and a microphone, you can walk up to any character in any game, and based on ChatGPT or whatever, you can have a conversation with them. You say like, "Oh, how's business?" and then they'll respond. That was that kind of like weird video that they showed.
I do remember that. Yeah. Now that you said that, how's business?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
That triggered my memory.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like it's just like the AI's like you have like conversation, and it's like fascinating because like that's where games will end up at some point. There'll be a game where that'll be available.
Yeah.
So basically, like this is like that location in like a tech demo.
Cool.
So basically, it's running in Unreal Engine 5. So it's Unreal Engine 5 demo for DLSS 3.5. So it's got ray tracing, direct illumination, Epic's or the Unreal Engine's Lumen global illumination, reflections, and DLSS 3.5 with ray reconstruction. And then you've got 8K textures, and you can adjust all settings from within the demo, and you can turn ray reconstruction, which is the DLSS 3.5, on and off. to see some differences in the scenes. And when you turn it off and on in a lot of things, you just notice that objects start to look sharper and more detailed, and the lighting and the shadows starts to look a lot more crisper, and it just makes all the ray tracing look a lot better. And to be honest, like, because it's not for every game, right? But more games, like, Spider-Man on PS5, every mode is going to have ray tracing on PS5.
That's awesome.
So the performance mode is going to run at 60 FPS with ray tracing. The visual fidelity mode will run at a higher resolution with ray tracing. So, like, blockbuster games are adopting the technology because it makes games look cinematic. Because if lighting and shadows and reflections are realistic, the games look more cinematic. They look more immersion. They're more immersive, etc., etc. What 3.5 is going to do is that unless there's a competing version from Intel or AMD, with 3.5 ray tracing looks better on NVIDIA hardware. Case closed. Like, it's not even close. And this is just based on, like, previous NVIDIA ray tracing, which was superior anyway, It's just like it takes what was already good and makes it noticeably better and great.
Wow. These were, correct me if I'm wrong here, but, like, these were at least similar claims that NVIDIA made when ray tracing and DLSS was first announced.
And it wasn't.
And it wasn't that.
No.
Yeah, and now we're here.
Yeah, that's right. But, I mean, like, I was excited for, like, ray tracing with the Turing generation, but it was cool, right? And it was like, oh, you get to see ray traced reflections in real time. And, yeah, sure, they were, like, some of them were a little blurry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you could see that sort of, like, shimmering effect. Like, when you turn, like, ray tracing on, like, metals start looking a little bit weird because they're reflecting the light in the world, but they kind of look fuzzy in a way. Like, you can kind of, like, almost tell in some games when ray tracing is enabled because some of the effects look a bit fuzzy. And
more so the ISO is cranked.
More so on, like, consoles, because they have to, like, turn the quality of the effects down, like, the amount of rays that they're bouncing around, which actually leads to, like, the need for something like DLSS 3.5.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it a lot. I like that we're finally here. Like, we're at the stage where ray tracing is getting to the point, is looking fantastic. And DLSS isn't a gimmick technology. It is now it's a technology that is necessary for you to be running ray tracing games, and you'd be silly to not turn it on.
So, like, NVIDIA also provided, like, for the preview, for the press preview, like, they provided this, like, 30 gig real-time Omniverse scene to download as well, which is basically, like, something that, like, an architect or a 3D modeler or a designer would use to create, like, like an environment, and then to be able to, to make adjustments and do things.
Was this in the restaurant?
No, this is something else. This was, like, like a house with, like, a garage and and all these things, so you can, like, explore it in 3D.
It's kind of like you're going through, like, a real estate, like, if you look through, like, a...
And so, and you can turn on DLSS 3.5 on and off. So when you go look up objects close, you turn it off and you turn it on, and then you can see, like, more detail, like the shadows look sharper all of a sudden. Like, it looks, like, amazing beforehand, and then you turn on, you're like, oh, everything is, like, it's almost like running a game in 4K versus 1080p or 1440p.
Ooh.
That's the difference.
Hot take.
That it brings. Yeah.
Hot take.
Yeah, it's basically like bumping up the resolution.
Yeah.
Without actually bumping up the resolution.
I'm excited to see it. I'm very excited. Is that everything that you wanted to cover on 3.5 or?
Yeah, look out for more coverage on Tweakdown.
Yeah, that one's something to pay attention to, guys. Especially if you're, most of you are falling into the 70% of people that are using NVIDIA hardware. It's something to be excited for in the future if you've got the compatible components. What should we jump into now? Should we go... Maybe we'll keep it on GPUs.
We'll just do the... let's talk about, like, the hidden cable, because we've got a cool sample from 3D that I'm currently reviewing that you'll be able to check out on the site soon. So essentially, like with GPUs, with the 40 series, we've seen like all these, the new connector with the adapters, and which brought to the GPUs have been starting sucking up way more and more power like over the years, right? Like back in the day, you could run a GPU off the PCI Express power or the power from your motherboard, and then it was like, okay, now you need a 6-pin cable. And then a few years later, it's like, oh, now you need an 8-pin.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, well, now you need 2 8-pins. You're like, woof, okay, what's going on here? And then it's like, you need 3 8-pins.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so now I'm connecting 3 of these into this GPU.
For like the MSI Lightning or something like that.
And there's just all these cables coming out. And so the people that are making GPUs and cases and motherboards, they've looked at it and they go, okay, cable management and making things look good is like top of the list for a lot of people. Like you want your case to look good, you got lighting, you got color matching, you want to hide the cables, right?
Designs as well.
Yeah. So 3D have got a GeForce RTX 4070 that I'm holding up now that basically has a stealth cable management design. So looking at the top, there's actually no spot there to plug in the 8-pin power connector. It's a 2-slot GPU. It's 2 fans, it's light, it's sleek, it's pretty small, and essentially the 8-pin power connector connects on the back in a little slot that has its own panel that you screw on and off. And 3D packed in, because the GPU is in stylish white, they've actually packed in an actual adapter or extender, so that all plugs in directly to the back of the GPU. And just connect that in, yeah. And then the panel goes on top, and then that sits in the motherboard. And then basically you don't see the cable, and you look at the top, there's no cable connected. And it's an elegant and simple solution for cable management. And being in stylish white, it's actually one of the best looking, and probably I would say like one of the 4070s to go for if you're in the market for a 4070 for sure.
If you appreciate the minimalist kind of...
I think it's just a better design.
Oh, just overall?
Yeah.
How does it look in the case?
The cable plug in.
Does it look... Like I suppose if your case is front on, like to you, if it's at desk height.
If you need to... there's enough flex on the cable that if you need to connect it to your existing 8-pin power connector to extend it, and then that's just going to hang off to the side, then it'll hang off to the side if that's the only option you got. But there's enough slack and bend for you to thread it through your motherboard, because usually on your motherboard the power cables for your GPU kind of come through from the side of your motherboard, usually through a slot in your case.
Yeah.
There's enough slack for this to go through that little slot, and so you don't really see it.
Oh, that's so nice.
And because it's white, it's the same color as the GPU, so it kind of just blends in.
I've got freaking 6 cables running around in my case because of the 4090. Do you think we could see this kind of design for such a power hungry card?
Yes, but that brings us to the other option, which is what ASUS is doing, and they just launched in China their BTF series, which is whenever I hear BTF, I just think of Back to the Future for some
reason. So this is the ASUS's first power cable-free GeForce RTX 4070 GPU is launching in Asia this week.
Yeah, and so it is a collaboration between ASUS, Thermaltake, and Silverstone, and they want other companies to sign up. Basically, what it does is it adds another little connector to the bottom of the GPU. So where you've got your PCI slot, there's another connector there, and that connects into the motherboard as well. And then underneath that, on the underside of the motherboard, is where the 12-volt, the new power connector is. So basically, everything connects to the underside of the motherboard, and that's all power connectors. So basically, what you need then is, so if you buy this brand new video card, you're going to need the motherboard to go with it that has that connection, and then you're going to need a case to go with it to ensure that there's space under the motherboard for you to access all the power points.
Right.
So this is something that will take ages to become a thing, like because you need 3 things all specialized, all a specific type. But it's good to see, because then eventually, down the road, then if everybody starts moving across to this sort of design and it's standardized for all brands, then that'll be the way forward.
I think we saw this at Computex, didn't we?
Yeah, we saw a version of it.
Yeah, and I think you asked a similar question to, I can't remember what brand it was, but...
it was MSI, yeah. And they said that, they're potentially in discussions as well about it, because you would need ASUS, MSI, and Gigabyte really to be on board.
Yeah.
AS Rock.
Yeah.
And you need all the big motherboard brands to come on board, because it's reliant on a special motherboard design.
Yeah, and then just over the generations, it'll eventually become widely adopted. I don't think it's going to be one of those things that people rush out and buy, but, over the course of 5 years, probably even a bit longer, we could start to see this becoming the norm in people's PCs. Do you think that will be the case?
I mean, hopefully. But the thing is, it'll take a while. But the thing is, it's kind of future-proofed in a way, because the power delivery goes up to 600 watts, which is just what the single 12-volt power connector for the new 40 series cards, the new the ATX 3.0 power cables. That's what they can handle. So technically, it can handle a 4090 without anything plugging into the card directly.
Wow.
Which is pretty good. I mean, the first one that they're releasing is a 4070. I think they're just being conservative, because the 4070 is a super efficient card. It's one of the most popular. It's going to sell.
Yeah.
But it can handle, based on they say the power delivery ranges from 75 watts up to 600 watts on that little.
That's crazy.
Extra little bit, yeah.
How did they do that? Why do I need 5 cords going into my 4090? What's going on?
Exactly. Because they didn't think about these things. They just, that's like I told you, over the years, they just, now your GPU needs 3 8-pin power connectors. Now it needs 4, on the 4090 ball. But we're going to have this.
Now it looks like the top of a palm tree. When I look at my computer, it looks like it's
hilarious.
Yeah, it is very funny.
The 4090 looks so good, especially the Founders Edition,
so nice.
Without any power cables connected to it.
So
but as soon
nice.
as you, but that's what makes this Inno 3D one, which review will be up on Tweaktown soon. This is what makes this one so exciting, is that it's just a elegant way to look at the existing problem, which the problem is what do we do about cable management? And it's people don't want to see cables plugged into the top of their GPUs.
No, it's all pressed up against my glass and stuff, and that makes me concerned.
Yeah, so let's thread it through the underside.
Yeah.
And have a flexible cable and so it's no issue.
I am all for it. I love minimal. My case is white. I love that card. I love that card's design.
Oh yeah, my case is white too. So it looks amazing when it's connected, because it just sits there and you're like, there's no cable plugged into it. It makes so much of a difference, because it's an eyesore.
It is.
When you see all those cables.
It is. It completely is.
Plugging.
And it's the first thing girlfriends see. That's what, or at least mine. At least mine does.
No,
I'm like,
I all do. Yes.
Yeah.
It's why are there so many cables?
Yeah. I got finished building my new rig. Massive new.
Baby. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and I had it on my desk. I was showing her, and I was going through all the components. Be like, look, here's the power supply. Here's the red. It was like I was speaking Chinese to her. She had no idea what I was talking about. First thing she says, cables? I was telling her how many CUDA cores were in the 4090, like it meant something to her, and had it all plugged in, and then I did the whole big dramatic turn on, and then it all just booted up perfectly fine. I obviously booted it beforehand to make sure it posted.
Moment of truth.
Turned it on, and the first thing she says to me is, "Why is there so many cables?" And I'm like,
"That's exactly right."
I'm like, I would also like to know the answer to that question. I don't know.
It's so many cables.
It's so many.
Oh, dude, behind, just look around. It's just everything needs a cable.
Yeah, I mean, they've built cases for you to put there's different regions, especially if you take mine off.
Yeah, no, like the back of the case still looks like a jungle, right? Like even if you've got like minimal cable management, right? You're just still threading a few cables behind the motherboard, behind your case and stuff like that. Like,
and the more like,
and it looks okay. Like like the GPU.
The more SATA stuff that you have, the more SATA connectors. It just starts getting out of control.
Just M2, yeah, forget it.
Forget it.
Forget the traditional drives. There's too many cables. Yeah.
Forget it. It's not happening. All right, let's move on to
Switch. Yeah.
You want to go to the Switch? Okay. Maybe we'll. I don't even have the. Oh yes, here it is. Okay, so. Leaked Activision emails reveal details about the Nintendo Switch 2. And these are continuing of last week's episode where we discussed the Nintendo Switch 2 rumors hold on, let me organize my thoughts here. I just want to make sure I get it right. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is rumored to adopt a new NVIDIA. It's an SoC, right?
Yeah, Ampere-based that will have Tensor cores and will be able to handle DLSS and ray tracing.
Yes, that. And now, leaked emails have come out of the Microsoft acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And the emails were with what was his name?
Bobby Kotick.
Bobby Kotick, which is the CEO of the is he the CEO of Activision?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he had
CEO of Activision Blizzard.
He apparently had a meeting. All of these emails are so redacted. Did you click on them?
Yeah, I know. It's like they're like CIA documents.
Yeah, everything is redacted in them. But The Verge managed to get some quote from it. Again, this is all rumored stuff. None of this is officially being talked about by anyone that is involved in any of these rumors. Bobby Kotick had a meeting with Nintendo to discuss the Switch NG, which apparently translates to, according to The Verge, Switch next generation. Yep. And the email reveals that
it's not a cool name though. Like just to go back in time, right? So the GameCube's code name was Dolphin.
That is so much cooler.
Dolphin.
It's way cooler.
Yeah. They need to like give it a name like that, not Switch NG.
Yeah, I think it's like code named. The code name's lame. Yeah, they dropped the ball here. If this is true,
like Xbox has like cool code names like for some of their consoles.
Wasn't it like Scarlet or something like that?
Yeah, it was Project Scarlet, and these that's what you want.
Yeah, Scarlet is so nice.
It has to sound like some sort of like secret.
It sounds like a military code. It's like the Fox.
Project. It has to be, it can't be like Switch NG. It has to be like Project. Oh, well, like the N64 was Project Reality.
That's cool. That's cool.
Like, I mean, because as if those graphics were realistic.
So these emails said, given the closer alignment to Gen 8 platforms in terms of performance and our previous offerings on PS4/Xbox One, it is reasonable to assume we could make something compelling for the NG Switch as well. So that's alluding to the Nintendo Switch 2 having comparable performance to PS4 and Xbox One rather than PS5 and Xbox Series X. So that kind of aligns with last week's rumors that the adoption of the NVIDIA Ampere GPU and some developers being shown a demo of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild running at 4K 60 FPS at Gamescom. So this is kind of like a brief overview of what we know about the Nintendo Switch. Well, what we think we know about it, because again, this is all hearsay, as the Johnny Depp case and Amber Heard would say. It's all hearsay.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? So it's going to be a low power chip. So you can't expect a 20 watt thingo to be as powerful as a Series X or a PS5.
Yeah.
Right. The silicon is in the CPU. It's not going to be. But like, what makes it exciting is that you've got a more power efficient SoC from NVIDIA, and you've got DLSS and like, software based upscaling, like that'll be better than the upscaling that the PS4 and the Xbox One used back in the day. So yeah, like its power, its raw power will be comparable to those consoles, I think.
I
which
think
is still
it's true.
which is still kind of like the minimum spec for or the recommended spec for most games today on PC.
Yeah,
but
you're
like,
right.
With DLSS, it'll just be able to run all that in 4K. It'll be able to improve performance for maybe even to be able to handle ray tracing and things like that.
I wonder what version of DLSS this is.
Oh, it'll be like 3.5, I guess. Like if it's going to do ray tracing, I don't think it'll have frame generation. I don't think it makes sense for the Switch really, because frame generation is all about when you've got a CPU limitation, and it's all about having a baseline of really fast performance, right?
Yeah.
So for frame generation to work well, you need to be running the game at a solid 60 frames per second at a minimum for frame generation to really make a difference. For it to feel as smooth as it looks. So like using frame generation to go from like 30 FPS to like 70, it's just going to play like a 30 FPS game, and it's going to be looking like it's running fast. Because it's a perceived. It's not a actual increase in. I mean, it is like an increase in performance, right? But it's like a lot of people call it fake frames because they are. I mean, they're AI generated, so they're not. So it's not the engine generating them. But then you've got latency reduction technology. You got all these things happening, right? So it's not traditional rendering in any sense. So for it to actually work really well, if you've got a game running at like 60, 70, 80 FPS, and then with frame generation goes up to like 140, 150, let's say, or like double or 120, it looks smoother, and then with latency reduction, it plays and it feels great too. But like it's not a magic thing, and like the Switch, they'll be using DLSS 2 and DLSS 3.5s, like the ray reconstruction or whatever they're using, the existing DLSS, to be able to hit 60 or maintain a solid frame rate versus without drawing a lot of power, versus trying to run everything natively at 60 and then using frame gen to make it go at 100 or something. It just doesn't make sense.
I agree completely. Purely on the aspect of Nintendo, like they don't necessarily prioritize frames in their games anyway. They would prefer the game to play at 30 and look incredible. So I completely agree with them not adding frame generation. I don't think it's necessary. I think it might be a nice touch, and if they can do it, they might. But I think it's easily one of the first things that are on the chopping block for them.
Yeah, like if it saves them money by not having extra hardware on the SoC, they would cut it.
Yeah, they'll cut it for sure.
At the end of the day, like we said last week, is that Nintendo aren't in the game of making a 4090 or a PlayStation 5, or they're not in the arms race, so to speak, when it comes to who can push the best visuals. And my game runs 4 frames faster than yours. It's got a few extra lines of horizontal resolution. Yeah, they're not in there. They're not worried about that. They're
not worried about lap time.
Target.
They're not worried about lap time at all.
Yeah, they want a performance target so then they can make their masterpieces.
And you know what? I'm glad that they do that. I really am.
Because it's different. Like, well, I don't need the Switch 2 to be a PS5 or an Xbox, because then it's just going to be a PS5 or an Xbox.
Exactly right.
You need it to be the place of Mario and Zelda, etc., and you need it, and you want it for those games to look better than they have ever before.
They're going to look great.
They will. Yeah.
They're going to look great, man. Yeah, just a quick little update on the Nintendo Switch 2 rumors. We'll try each week. Well, each week there might be there might not be a rumor each week, but every time we hear something, we'll definitely keep you guys informed on what the latest discussion is surrounding Nintendo's next generation Switch. I think that was basically it for the Nintendo Switch 2, or did we have more on that?
No, I mean there's rumors as to what the actual chip is. So like we posted an article about this is the chip that's going to be in the Nintendo Switch 2. I think we maybe touched on it last week. Yeah, and there's other people confirming, or there's rumors now popping up circulating that we might touch on next week, or depending on how it pans out, that it is going to be a similar version to that chip that we talked about, or a slightly cut down version using a more advanced node. But whatever the case is, like it's not really going to change the story other than the fact. I mean, the main takeaway is that it's NVIDIA Ampere hardware, running on Samsung's 8nm process technology, a more advanced version, more efficient version, and it's going to be a massive increase compared to the existing switches now aging.
Tegra chip.
Creaking Tegra X1 chip that's like...
Creaking? I like that. Yeah. I like that.
It's creaking.
It's like an old bed frame. Like, oh, God, we're playing games again.
Once more.
Okay, did you want to jump over to the iPhone 15 Pro? I'm just going to bang out some of these stories nice and quickly. These ones aren't too long. These are just things that you should know about the new iPhone 15 Pro. Replacing the back glass is going to be a lot cheaper and easier, and I'm going to tell you why. So Apple have put new technology, what they like to call, and prepare your ears for marketing jargon, new internal chassis architecture that will enable the glass to be easily replaced. So they've added new technology to the back of the phone that allows taking the glass out to be much easier for, I'm guessing, Apple and anyone else that is doing repairs. I'm not sure if this is going to... pardon me, impact repair costs, third-party repair costs, but these repair costs just from Apple is a dramatic drop. So just for comparison, the iPhone 14 Pro back glass costs $499 to be repaired from Apple, and with the iPhone 15 Pro back glass will cost $169.
Right.
So it is a big drop in price, and is maybe one of those reasons, like if you're the type of person that drops their phone a lot, even manages to break it through a case.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something to consider if you're getting thinking about getting new iPhone 15. Yeah, exactly. A lot of people do that. And you know what's funny? Just a little bit of a sidebar. Apple, throughout their Wanderlust event, I've just been going back through it because there's a lot to go through, even though there wasn't really that much announced. The iPhone 15 Pro, they talked about the new titanium chassis for it, and they're like, it's new, it's strong, it's durable, you can, like, you know, scratches aren't going to come up as much because they've done a brush finish, and it's like, that isn't what breaks on the phone. Everyone that drops their phone breaks the glass. The glass is what is the problem. It's not the chassis.
The chassis.
Yeah.
Like, since when does that break?
Like, it's polished, it's brushed, it's titanium. It's like, no one cares. Make the glass stronger.
Yeah, that just makes it lighter, the titanium. Right? That's all it does.
I do really like the titanium design, but I understand maybe I'm speaking for the masses here, but most people don't care. Really, they care if they drop their phone, is the glass going to shatter? If Apple came out next year and said, if you can drop this 100 times, it'll be at free fall speed, and it won't break, people would go after that phone. They would be so ready to buy that. If you said this is 100% guaranteed, if you drop it free fall speed from arm's height up to, I don't know, 7 foot, I don't know, and it won't break, people would be jumping at that phone. They don't care if the chassis is 5% stronger, or even if it is 50% stronger. It's not the thing that's breaking.
Material that's so much more durable.
Yeah.
30% more durable than the previous metal you didn't know.
Make the glass indestructible.
Make the thing, make it bounce.
Make it
Super Bowl.
That would be nuts.
Just have a kid, just like boom.
That is just a quick little update on the iPhone. If you're thinking about buying the new iPhone, I'm just going to go because we're getting strapped for time here. I'm just going to bang out some of the quick ones here. NASA's rover photographed an avocado on the surface of Mars. Avocado in quotation marks. So NASA's Perseverance rover touched down on the red planet February 18th, 2021. It's been tasked to look for ancient microbial life, as I've been discussing in previous episodes. It's collecting a lot of core samples that will then get transported back to Earth for future, more in-depth analysis. While it is exploring the surface of the red planet, it is constantly taking photos of basically whatever it thinks might be interesting. It is operated by NASA engineers, but sometimes it takes photos of stuff that look like stuff on Earth, and the internet gets a bit funny about it. There's a lot of conspiracy theories jump in, and then they go, "This is like none of this is real. This is in a set. Like, why would the rock break that way?" And you know, they don't add any. I don't know.
And that's not the way rocks break.
Yeah,
I break rocks for a living.
Like maybe it just did it that way. Like, you know, it doesn't have to be a set.
I love how everybody becomes like an expert on something that is like, why would you know that?
Yeah,
you know the way every single type of rock breaks.
Yeah, no, yeah, it is just something else. But if you are just an audio listener, I advise you to pull up the video part of this, of the podcast here, and you take a look at this rock. So I've dubbed this the Mars Avocado, and
it looks like an egg.
Yeah, it is essentially a rock. One piece of rock is in the foreground. It looks like the top of an avocado has been cut in half, and in the background of the photo is well, it looks exactly like an avocado with a nut in the middle still. And
I gotta say that those shadows look a little bit fake.
Oh, please!
Some studio lights there.
No.
You know the way shadows work, because if you haven't been listening, I'm an expert on DLSS and ray tracing.
Ah, okay. Is this your professional opinion? You're on the record.
You can let me run it through my AI system, and I'll get you a better fake photo than this.
I don't run that image through NVIDIA Remix, and then it'll come out way better. Okay, so the image was snapped using Perseverance's Mastercam Z. Shows the rock resembles an avocado cut in half. One half of the avocado is laying in the foreground of the image, with the second half laying upright, with the nut still in the center. Of course, this isn't actually a Martian avocado. Shock. And it is just a rock that is seemingly being split. We can attribute this connection between the Mars rock and the avocado to the phenomena called pareidolia, which is the tendency to impose meaningful interpretation onto objects. An example of this would be looking up at the clouds and pointing out the appearance of animals, human faces, or objects. The same goes for the Mars rock that looks like an avocado. And
like constellations and all sorts of things. Yeah, all it is like when it's a trick of light or shadows, like now it looks like something.
Yeah, it is a human brain phenomena to impose meaning onto something that has nothing. So I'm sure you've done this at some stage. It's often the case
of like it's the human brain being lazy too.
Yeah, it's lazy, and it's
like what is this? Because it's an avocado.
So
I'm not gonna give it any more thought than that.
A prime example of this, I'm just sending the link into Discord so you can check it out. This is not a new thing for people to find rocks, objects, images of space, different planets, and impose meaning on it, or see something in it that isn't there.
Yeah, the infamous face on Mars.
That was what. Yeah, I was about to bring that up. Is a classic photo. It's called the infamous face on Mars, as Kosta just said, and it is a photo of a hill on Mars, and the shadows at that specific time when the photo was taken resembled. It looks exactly like a face.
Did you see the movie Mission to Mars?
I don't think I have. No.
It's like, I think it's like around about year 2000 or something like that. But anyway, it's kind of like it tries to be like a 2001 A Space Odyssey thing in a way. But anyway, like it's basically these people go to Mars, right? And so like the climax of the movie, because this is like before the photos came out, almost like a year before the photos came out of like those high-res images of like the same location, and you can just see that it's just a hill. So in the movie, they find like this alien temple or something like that, and it's all about like ancient aliens and how they seeded Earth or some
wow,
conspiracy or something, that usual thing. But anyway, like at the end, like the around the mountain or whatever, like the camera zooms out and you see like the face on Mars. So you can see that was like clearly inspired by this photo.
Oh really? I had no idea. I'm just looking at the movie
later,
now. 2000. Okay.
Yeah, and then like a year later or whatever it was, like around the same time, they basically became big news. The face on Mars was nothing. Here's an image. It was blah blah blah, and the movie was like made a whole movie about the face of Mars.
I'm just looking at images of it now. It looks really funny. Yeah, yeah. It's actually nothing. It's just a bunch of shadows. But yeah, so that phenomena happens all the time. It was only last week that Perseverance took some photos of some rocks, and they look like shark fins and a crab claw. Humans just to show. It's just image. It's just image association. It's for us to understand something, because we know that this is on Mars, this is foreign, and this is strange. We immediately try and associate with what we are seeing to something else that we know, and it's just like a reassurance of something that is almost unexplainable. It's like looking up in the thing, you just recognize into the clouds. You recognize a face up there. You're like, whoa, that's crazy. Like but it's not actually there. It's just I don't know. It's pattern recognition, and it's a phenomenon. It's our brains doing it, which is awesome. Like, I don't think a dog looks at that and goes, "Oh, look, there's a face on Mars." Like, he's got no preconceived notions of like what even Mars is. All he knows is what's around him. So yeah, we just wanted to knock that one out. And do you want to go over to Intel?
Yeah. So this is interesting because Intel launching a Raptor Lake refresh generation. So it's using the existing 13th gen core technology, or the same process node anyway, so it's like their next generation CPUs are coming out in October. I'm not a CPU expert, but it'll be the Core i9 1400 series. So there'll be a 14900, 14600, 14700, etc., etc. And apparently they're coming out next month, and it is a kind of like a stopgap generation where, like, where Ryzen had like when you go from like Ryzen 1 to like 2, where it uses the same sort of like process node or arc, it's just like a slight improvement. So like their next major release is going to be Meteor Lake, is like the architecture. But anyway, like, we're getting a lot of benchmark results for this new generation, and the flagship CPUs are actually surprisingly beefy in terms of like performance. When it comes to, we were talking about like GPU performance upgrades, like where 20% is considered pretty good. For a CPU, like single core performance and multi-core performance at about 10% is good.
Yeah,
it's a little bit. The bar is lower apparently. So the Intel Core i9 14900KF, which will be the flagship GPU, it has a 6 gigahertz clock speed out of the box, which is huge.
That's crazy.
Right? And so the 14900K, which has a similar setup to the 13900K, 8P cores, 16E cores, and the 1400KF will be the same as the previous generation, but with a faster clock speed. So we're seeing like Geekbench and CPU-Z benchmark results pop up, and these are the benchmark tools that kind of like gauge CPU performance. And the Geekbench results for the new flagship from a user called OneRaichu run multiple tests with this Intel CPU. So there's like multiple entries on Geekbench for the Core i9 14900KF, and its single core result is 13% faster than the current fastest GPU, the Core i9 13900KF. Also 15% faster than AMD's flagship Ryzen 9 7950X that came out late last year, and the multi-core score was like 20% faster than Ryzen's flagship. So it's a pretty significant increase. So these CPUs are apparently coming out next month, and so this will be the fastest CPU consumer CPU when it launches, supposedly on October 17. And I'm assuming that Intel will unveil this stuff in the next week or so, is the current rumor.
Yeah.
And there's also rumors that these new CPUs will cost a lot more than their existing 13th gen CPUs that are available now, which will kind of like take the sting out of the excitement for them being better performing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I hope it's no more than 13% more expensive.
No, apparently like there's word that people saying that the prices are going to be a lot higher.
No.
Not too sure why.
13%, that's nice. Like I don't really keep up with that much CPU news, and I'm not sure. I'm much more familiar in the performance of GPUs. So, GPUs, and you know how we were talking about earlier, it's like anything above 20% is like, that's pretty good. You should be happy with a 20% architectural leap in performance. Is that, just a guess, is that the same for CPUs, or is it much less? 10%. Or that's 10%?
Yep. So,
okay.
And because the thing is that people weren't expecting this 14th gen to be much better than an existing 13th gen, because it's called Raptor Lake Refresh. So it's basically using the same architecture, but just like, optimized. It's going to have faster clock speeds, more efficient this or that, or different design for this or that, or whatever the case is, to get more performance out of it. So people were expecting, it's probably going to be like a 5 to 10% uplift at best. But now you're seeing like 15% in a lot of cases.
That's nice.
Gen on gen. So it's actually really, really decent, because people were thinking, I think I'm not a huge cross CPU stuff, but people were thinking that this generation, this 14th gen, is just Intel coming in early to get ahead of AMD's sort of like refresh for Ryzen before they release the next Zen architecture and stuff like that, because Intel's next architecture has been delayed multiple times or is on track for whenever now. But so it actually looks like these new CPUs will be pretty powerful.
Wow. 6 gigahertz out of the box is nuts.
Yeah, I know. And it's like with the rumors of the 5090 at this top of the show, like 2.9 gigahertz, or which means there might be an OC model that's just 3 gigahertz out of the box. God. Which is just crazy. But the problem with this sort of stuff is that they just keep pushing it, that we're just going to keep needing more
and more cooling, performance,
more power, more cooling.
Love it.
More RGB. More cables.
More cables. No, that should be this week's title for our episode is "Get rid of the king." More cables. We want more cables. Mm-hmm. Did you want to finish this week's episode?
Become the cable guys.
The cable guys. Do you want to finish this week's episode off with the Reddit story?
Yeah, all right, so I'll do this briefly. So there is this conspiracy, if you can call it that. I mean, we love conspiracies, right?
We do.
So NVIDIA isn't always considered in the best of light by the community, because when you're at the top of the castle dictating prices and everything like that.
Yes.
It's like,
heavy wears the crown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So when NVIDIA released, when they launched DLSS, it needed RTX hardware, which at the time was brand new. It didn't work with 99% of all the GPUs out there, because it required Tensor cores, and because it's AI based, and it's the first AI driven game technology. And so people were basically saying, well, does it really need AI to run? Like, couldn't you just run it without AI hardware? And then AMD released FSR, and obviously that wasn't, and still isn't, image quality on par with DLSS. That doesn't require specialized AI hardware. So then there's a group of people that say that, well, DLSS is kind of like a scam. It doesn't need AI hardware, really. They could run without it. That they're locking it to the RTX GPUs for no reason, or other than to get people to upgrade. This is the conspiracy. But now we've got 3 generations of RTX hardware. So if you got a GeForce GPU, odds are it's going to have Tensor cores for DLSS. So it's mature technology. So a Redditor, Blue.55, decided to do an investigation to say, hey, if I enable DLSS and frame generation, does it actually require this hardware? Because with the 40 series, frame generation requires 40 series hardware because it's got more advanced AI hardware in it. And it was some fascinating results. So initially, he was using this NVIDIA tool called Insight Systems for Developers, which basically gives you, detailed readouts of what's happening. So with looking at it like at the frame level, with DLSS enabled, it basically the results were showing that the Tensor core usage, which is the AI hardware in the GeForce RTX GPUs, was averaging out to be less than 1% usage.
Whoa.
With DLSS enabled. So which basically not a lot is happening. With frame generation, you saw that averages at some point hit 9% usage, which is still not that much, right? Peak utilization with frame generation will hit 9%, but not fully. So basically the conclusion was it's overkill to rely on Tensor cores and AI hardware to make this stuff to work.
Wow.
But where the story becomes interesting is that if you think about what DLSS does, right? It upscales the image and frame generation generates frames. And in order for it to do that, it has to do it super, super quick, right? It has to do that almost as close to instantaneous as possible.
Without any latency.
Exactly. So the interval that he was testing and polling the tensor cores to see what was happening was too high, right? Even at 1 millisecond or whatever it is, or one frame. So increasing the polling rate to a much higher interval, he doesn't say exactly, peak tensor core usage for DLSS balanced on the 4090 with frame generation hit over 90%.
Oh, wow.
But it hit 90% super quickly and then dropped, which shows you that the tensor cores are basically like firing like synapses on these GeForce GPUs. So that's kind of like how they're being used, which is really cool because it basically, and then now the conclusion is yes, they are being used.
Yeah, they're like pistons in a traditional engine.
Yeah, so they're firing when they need to, but they're firing really intensely and really quickly.
Wow.
And super intensely when there's frame generation involved, but also like at a high usage when it's just DLSS super resolution as well, but only for split, for basically how it was
fractions of a second, fractions of a millisecond. Sorry.
Yeah,
that is phenomenal. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I
so
like
it was
that.
Kind of like a cool story because it was this thing that people saying well, we don't think it really needs tensor cores, and maybe there's a version of DLSS that can run without it. Like Intel has a version of their XeSS that runs in their own hardware that uses AI hardware on their GPUs, and they have a version that runs on non-Intel GPUs if you enable it in a game, and it doesn't look as good because it has to use a different method or things like that. I think that'll be the case. If NVIDIA decided to say, okay, we're going to there's going to be a version of DLSS that'll work on older GeForce cards as well as Radeon cards and Intel cards, it won't look as good. But the thing is, they kind of have that version anyway. It's called they've had it at the driver level for years. It was just like a traditional upscaler, and it looks okay. But yeah, I think this, at least this cool little test by Redditor, Blue.55.
Shout out Blue.55. You did a wicked test,
it's kind of cool because it's kind of
cool.
Hey, it looks like they're not being used for a lot, but then it's and he posted his original post with that information and then updated it later to say hold on a second, I increased the polling rate to a much higher level, and guess what? It's over 90%, but it's really only that peak for 90% usage is happens in an instant.
Yeah, it makes me. I mean, of course, it makes sense at face value that NVIDIA would be adding these tensor cores to because they're necessary. They're not just putting them in there because it gives them an excuse to then sell you a more expensive graphics card. And tests like this prove that they do have a necessary role in all of this emerging technology, which is, I don't know, it makes me happy. And tests like this by the community is
yeah, it's really cool.
It's really, really nice. Really, really nice. Did we have anything else for this week's episode? We are running out of time.
No.
No, I think we are all good. I might touch on the UFO report next week when a bit more information comes out, and I'll get a nice little summary together. But yeah, that is another jam-packed week of news. It is,
and it'll be another jam-packed next week too. So
we're in Techtember and Techtober, so it is the time of the year for technology. All of the new stuff that is going to be hitting like holiday shelves and all of that is being announced. So it's the rush time of the year in our professions. I think that's about it. Also before we end this episode, we're going to be implementing a new kind of community engagement thing with all of the listeners and watchers. We encourage you to send in your images of your PC and gaming setup, and at the end of each episode we'll go through them, comment on them, maybe like critique them a little bit, make some jokes.
We'll see how your cable game is.
Yeah, we'll see how your cable management is. You can send that into any of the Tweaktown social medias. So you got your Instagram, Facebook page works as well. We'll be doing a Facebook page post, and you might see it around other places. There might even be a news post, and if there is a news post, we'll have that linked down below in the description. And yes, this has been fun. Thank you very much for listening.
Episode 4.
Do you have anything else to round off episode 4?
No. We'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.